Hi, I'm Josh.
And I'm Martin.
And today we're going to do a reaction video to a video that has been reacted to many times before. So nothing new, but this is a video that ever since I saw it before reaction videos started, I was like, wow, I want to react to that video. So that's what we're doing today. We're going to react to a video that has probably been reacted to thousands of times. So let's get started. So, the Verge's PC build guide.
The infamous video.
Yes. So I mean, yeah, there's been slews and slews of reactions to this video already.
Right.
And the original video is nowhere to be found. The Verge took it off their channel shortly after they realized.
Right.
Yeah, they were getting a lot of negative attention from this video.
Yeah.
And yeah, I won't drag things on. Let's go ahead and get started.
So a few years ago, TC, or managing editor, built a gaming desktop, but it's kind of out of date, and it's definitely not going to hold up for Battlefield 5. So let's build a new one. You can build a gaming desktop for around $1,000, but I want to go all out, so I spent around $2,000. PC like this is going to be able to play most games at ultra settings. So what do you need to build a desktop? Well, of course, first you need a table. Preferably not metal. If it's going to be metal, have an anti-static working surface layered on top of it, a thermal paste applicator, an Allen wrench, some tweezers to tighten up the wires.
But, you know, if you can't afford a table, a floor will work.
Yeah.
A Swiss Army knife, which hopefully has a Phillips head screwdriver in it. And last but not least, an anti-static bracelet, which is to protect you.
Hold. Okay, first off... What?
So yeah, we're not even a minute into this video, by the way.
It's also very eclectic. Is that a good word? This choice of tools, thermal paste applicator to spread out the thermal paste. Who does that?
I'm not even sure if the thermal paste. Like I've never all the thermal paste I've bought. It's never come with an applicator.
What the hell? Oh no, and yeah.
He's got an Allen wrench there, and he called the zip ties tweezers, and he's got a Swiss Army knife, and he said, hopefully it's got a Phillips head screwdriver in it.
Because he didn't check. I mean, we also call it Victorinox, what do you call it? They make good knives for all around doing stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, and I've never used an Allen wrench on a PC, or, well, I mean, maybe some server screws, but even those are always Phillips.
Yeah. But, and it has his what's it called?
The anti-static wristband.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a promotional wristband. That's not going to protect you from anything besides remembering who to call, where you got the wristband from.
No.
Yeah, if you are building a PC and you want to protect yourself and the PC, you need an anti-static wristband, and it's going to be attached to something. Its purpose is to take the charge away from you and keep you grounded. So,
yeah, at least the same level as the hardware. And a pro tip is that, not pro tip, but you can't buy them too cheaply. There should be a resistor in the chain between you and the ground, because if you touch a live wire and there's not a resistor, you can electrocute yourself. But the 1 mega ohm, however how much it is, if there's a resistor in the anti-static armband, you will get rid of the electricity the charge that can kill your PC, but you will not be in as much danger yourself, so be aware of that.
Yeah, it's better to electrocute your computer than yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I've worked with electronics for many years.
Yeah, so yeah, that anti-static wristband needs to be grounded to something. That's not going to do anything.
Yeah. Parts. These are the parts you're going to need, but more importantly, before we get there, we need to understand what these parts are doing and how they interact with one another. To better understand the parts that make up a desktop, let's try to understand them individually. The processor is like the computer's brain, a base of calculations that control everything the computer does. The motherboard is like the foundation,
this animation
serving
here
as a
is
main structure
useful
for all of the parts
people
to
that
be
don't
added
know.
to. It also allows the other parts to communicate with one another, which also makes
They
it kind
did a
of
good
like a nervous
job here.
system. Graphics cards are responsible for rendering and processing visuals into what you see on screen. Our PC's power supply is of course channeling electricity, in that it adjusts and provides the right amount of energy to keep it running. Last but not least, RAM, or random access memory, and your hard drive are good examples of short-term and long-term memory, respectively. If you want to better understand what kind of computer to build, then first figure out what you want to use it for. A gamer might care more about a graphics card than, say, a video editor who might want extra RAM to assist with editing large files. If you're building a budget build for video streaming, say under $1,000, you want to focus on parts, like a Core i5 or Core i3 processor, that require less energy.
And a
They'll be less
VHS tape.
powerful, but then you'll be able to scale back the cost of several other parts. And if you need help choosing the right parts for your build, there's sites like PCPartPicker.com that help show presets for which parts fit together, which sort of part conflicts you might have, and where to find deals on new parts. We have a lot of boxes and a lot.
So far, except from, I don't want to nitpick the thing about talking about how a computer works because that's really not necessary. But the VHS tape, what's up with that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. DVDs were a thing when this video came out.
I think even DVDs today, people are thinking, "Oh man, that's so old-fashioned." And anyway, that's but so good overall general explanation of things, what things is. I wouldn't probably call it short-term memory, long-term memory, but let's not get into too much. It's not necessary to nitpick on that.
A lot of PC parts, so it's best you unbox them, isolate the parts that you really need, place items into the case, and make sure that they all fit, and then start working. And now we're really going to start building by adding the motherboard in. Some notes about installing motherboards: they're really delicate. You should be really careful with them. Yes. And screw in with confidence, but also don't screw in too hard, otherwise you could crack the board. I chose Asus's Z370.
My confidence will crack the board.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, while you got the motherboard just sitting there on you got no obstructions whatsoever, go ahead and just slap that CPU in right now.
Perfect time.
The board for two main reasons. One, it has built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and also it has support for NVMe SSDs, meaning you can get really fast SSDs that are really easy to install. Pay close attention to the brace that goes at the back of the computer. You always have to make sure that you really hammer it in, because there's no screw. It really just has to go outside of the case and clasp onto the frame. And this is very important because otherwise you can't align the motherboard correctly with the holes. We're just going to start installing all 8 screws.
Confidence.
Yeah. Don't scratch it. Don't run it across the
So next we're going to install the RAM on the motherboard. I chose Corsair's 16GB Vengeance LED RAM for two main reasons. One, it has LEDs and we do like lights in our gaming desktops. Secondly, it's pretty fast RAM. It's 2666 megahertz, I believe. So it's pretty fast, and this motherboard supports that speed, which is most important. Open the slots first, and just aligning the stick with the middle of the strip.
And I remember this right now. I'm pretty sure, you can see the Ram's notch is right there, but I'm pretty sure the motherboard notch is over here. It looks like he's installing that backwards.
Yeah.
Not with the end, and just lining that up with the logo.
You see immediately
so once you hear
cut,
that solid clasp and you don't see the gold connectors on the side anymore, that's
now
when
it's
you know
turned
the RAM
around.
is in. Step 3, we're going to install the hard drive, or in this case, the NVMe SSD. I chose this format of solid-state drive so that I could input it into the motherboard without having to worry about extra wires.
I'm sure that's probably when they first started getting released.
Messy. This is from
Also,
Kingston,
the RAM is installed
and
wrong.
it's 480 gigabytes, so it's not a lot, but you can always upgrade this and swap it out, and it's only held down by one screw and a latch, so it's really simple and really straightforward. Speed for gaming is important when it comes to a hard drive. You want files to write quickly, and you want games to load quickly, so that's why it's best if you use an SSD. Okay, so step 4, we're going to install the graphics card. I chose PNY's GTX 1080, which is overclocked. And so it's a pretty easy installation. You're just going to find the gold connectors.
Spin it around and juggle
you're
it a
going to
little
line
bit.
this bracket with the back end bracket of your PC case. Now, which lane you choose depends entirely on what other parts you're going to put in the system. I'm just going to pick the top one because the SSD is at the bottom and I don't want to cover it.
It doesn't.
No, you just got to have confidence, Martin. As long as you're confident, it'll work.
Yeah, but you need to look at the lanes. Usually it's the one closest to the... Well, it depends on your motherboard, actually.
Yeah, read the manual.
But read the manual, but it usually not always they have the same amount of lanes the further you go down. So you probably want the best advice would be install the graphics card in the slot closest to the CPU. Yeah. That's usual if you want to give a general advice.
Yeah, if you don't want to read the manual, then that's the way to go.
And read the manual.
Yeah, honestly, rarely do I read manuals, but when I'm installing a new motherboard, that is a manual I do look at.
Yeah, definitely.
I just think
do that, please.
Click down.
Mm-hmm.
Take your remaining brackets and just put them in the spots that you haven't used.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to screw these in. They get bolted down by the back end bracket. And
depending
your GPU's installed.
Your PC case.
Power supply time. I chose Corsair's 850 watt power supply because I need enough headroom for ray tracing GPUs when they come out, and I don't want to have to upgrade it again.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So all you have to do is take the brick and make sure that you align it with these little insulating pads so that the power supply isn't...
So I remember the power supply scene.
Yeah.
There's a lot of problems here. So...
Yeah. Insulating pads.
Short circuit.
Oh, also, I want to say that I had a problem with the power supply, actually, that I had I upgraded the motherboard in my computer, and it needed more power for the CPU, and they didn't come with my old power supply from 2017, so I needed to buy a new one with more. It was a 750 watts, but I didn't have dual CPU power cables from the modular, so it kind of sucks. But yeah. So he might need to upgrade the power supply. Anyway.
Yeah, even still, if it doesn't have the right connector.
Can't blame him on that, though.
Yeah, sometimes you can get adapters, but it depends on the voltage and everything.
Yeah. Can't blame him on that. So
so I'm going to play this, but there are multiple things going on wrong with the power supply scene here.
Contact with the rest of the system.
So first, the thermal pads, the insulating,
nice and easy until you have a
it's backwards.
Fit, and then shift it to the back.
It is sucking hot air from inside the PC instead of...
Seems like the wrong... Yeah.
He's got it upside down.
Yeah.
Back and make sure it's right up against the frame. Now you just take the required screws and you tighten and screw in. So next step, we're going to install the CPU cooler. In this case, it's going to go on the top end of the case, and we're just going to have the hose hang out for a little while until we install the processor, which is
still has not installed the processor.
Always be sure to try
all
to
these
place it
things
in the
in the
system
way
first before you install it, because you can see it takes
I have
up
another
a
question,
lot
but that's
of
not
space.
for this video. I think we should do
but
that
in
a
this
different
case, no pun intended, it fits in perfectly, and we're going to start screwing it in.
Like airflow.
There's nothing special about this screwing in process. They're just really long screws because they go through the entire frame of the cooler, and they take forever.
Yeah, I'm assuming those are the screws that came with
every power supply is going to come with a big bag of Velcro cables. It's kind of done.
I just checked my EKBB water blocks. Pro company, by the way. I have another story about those for another day. But I needed a new cooling block for my CPU, and I said I have this one, and they said, "Oh, that fits with the new generation 12 Intel CPUs. You don't need to buy a new cooling block. Just buy another bracket from it behind."
Yeah.
And it's a euro for that. I thought, hey, shout out to EKBB because they could easily have said you need to buy a new. Anyway, but they said don't screw the long screws all the way in through that, because that will potentially cause damage to the radiator.
Wow. They actually told you that, huh?
Yeah, I think it was in the manual or something that needed to be mindful of that. So
I don't see why you would need screws that long, because he wasn't using these raised.
No.
He was screwing it directly in there, wasn't he?
A big bag of Velcro.
Maybe back it up a little bit. Right there.
Forever.
Yeah, he's not, like, I would see like the long screws being used here, but I don't know about that going into the radiator.
Dangerous, don't do that.
Yeah.
So next up, cables. Every power supply is going to come with a big bag of Velcro cables. It's
unless they're not modular,
first, so you always have to find the ones that are going to fit. In this case, you need to match those cables with the correct descriptions on the power supply. Next step is we're connecting the power supply to the motherboard with a 24-pin cable. We're just matching that cable from the motherboard, threading it through the back, and attaching the 24-pin header to the power supply so that we can have one of the connections
Sometimes it's a little
complete.
easier if you don't screw the power supply in before, depending on your PC case. Depending on the PC case, fasten the power supply as the last thing, because then it's easier to.
Don't save the CPU for last.
No, that should have been done ages ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not really sure. But yeah, that power supply, even still, they show it upside down. And you can see the editing. Like, I think they might show the 24-pin connector to the motherboard is like the only cable they show being connected. They don't show any of the headers, any of the other power supply connections, nothing.
If this is a first-time CPU computer build, you want to know that there are different connectors from the motherboard. And in today's CPU computers, I said there's even another one for the CPU, right? Sometimes two for the CPU just to deliver power, because sometimes some of those take 200 watts today. And then you have to the GPU, PCIe cards, and then you have for the hard drives and so forth.
Yeah, and I mean, if you built this PC step by step along with him, your PC wouldn't turn on for more reasons than one. But I mean, the simple fact that he's not showing you need to connect the power button header to the motherboard so it'll turn on.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, the editing, they just skip through all that.
Additions will be for the GPU, for any specific ports that the case has, for any lighting that the case has, the CPU cooler, anything else really. We're installing the CPU, the heart of the computer or the brain, depending on how you look at it. So to do this, we're just going to remove the plastic covering that they put on the motherboard. We're just going to take this little plastic part out. We'll just toss that out of here.
No,
and
save that.
Now we have
you don't need
exposed CPU.
You need to animate,
or rather slot.
Why do you need to keep parts?
And we're going to use the CPU applicator. This is a special little part that not everyone may get, but this...
I never gotten that.
This has always baffled me. What is he doing here?
I'm not sure. I never gotten a CPU
and we're going to
applicator.
use the CPU applicator. This is a special little part.
What is he doing here? He's got this piece of plastic. He's got the CPU upside down, and he's just poking at the CPU.
I'm not sure.
Not everyone may get, but this motherboard that we got from
so
Asus
unnecessary.
Definitely does have. It's called a CPU installation tool. It makes it really useful if you want to install a Core i7 hexa-core CPU. Yeah, we've got one, and it's an 8th generation chip, and it's ready to go. And it supports overclocking.
8th gen, not too old.
So what having this little installer does for you is it's basically a brace that you can apply right to the CPU and light it up with the triangles that you'll see on the bottom left corners. And this will make it easier for us to apply it to the motherboard, and then apply thermal paste, and then apply a CPU cooler on top. And we're just going to carefully
compare to the details of your video
and make sure
this
that
is
everything
totally unnecessary and over you know what I mean, skirt over other things, and then you need an applicator. Align the CPU with the notches.
Yeah, he's spending easily 30 seconds to a minute on the CPU applicator, and the more important parts of the video they don't even cover. Yeah, absolutely right.
It doesn't help anything.
Lines up. And we're going to clasp down on it, and we'll be good to go.
Well, I mean, they even show it right there. So he's got the applicator, right? He's applying it, and then
we're just going to carefully
where's the applicator? It's gone.
The system and make sure that everything lines up. And we're going to clasp down on it, and we'll be good to go.
What?
And again, if this was my first PC build, I would have put that CPU in with the applicator. The applicator would still be there. I'd try closing it and crack it all up.
It won't be a happy day.
So we're about to apply thermal paste to the CPU. Every CPU cooler actually comes with a bit of thermal paste already neatly applied in a circle around it.
Do.
But it's usually not enough. It's good, essentially PC building practice to have a little bit extra and layer it on top of the CPU. The final portion is to add the CPU cooler to the top end of the processor. So you're going to see that...
Oh, look at that. Look at that.
He put on even more, didn't he? After
it looked like it.
Processor.
We're just settled. So, look at that mess.
Whoa! Yeah, and it's just wasteful.
Yeah. I'd say just about that much would suffice.
Yeah.
Not. Yeah. And I mean,
to...
the CPU block already comes with the thermal pad on it, so you don't want to mix a pad with paste. You know, just scrape that pad off, sand it down a little bit, get it nice and smooth.
Yeah.
Thermal paste if it's better. You know, I like that silver, Arctic silver. That's good stuff.
Yeah, and it's not like you can't redo it. If you think you use too little, screw it on and see what happens. Warm up the CPU, run some Prime 95, whatever, and if you're unsure, you can always remove it again. Take a look at it. How did it go? How did it spread out? And say, if you buy some extra thermal paste, there's enough to do multiple applications. So you can always have a look at it. It's part of the fun of building a computer, learning, being better. I'm sure if he takes that apart again, it's going to be all over the motherboard.
Yeah, you want a grain of, grain of sand, like a grain of rice to like to a pea size. You don't want to go any more than that.
No. And you can always redo it. Have a look at it. How well did it go for you? Remove it again and then do it over.
Yeah.
So you're going to see that there are 4 brackets, or rather like screws in here with brackets and holders right here. And they're going to keep the cooler raised off the processor. But
and he has that plus the one already on it.
He's saying that the heat sink, like the screws and everything, will keep it raised off of the processor.
Oh, did you say that? I didn't hear. I was just so shocked.
Yeah.
Listen to him. To keep the cooler raised off the processor, but it's also going to be close enough to actually physically come in contact with it. Basically keep it
raised off of it, but physically in contact.
No, that's also wrong.
Cool. Take thumb screws like this and just screw them on. So now that our internals are done, we're going to put all the panels back on, which is the top glass, side glass, front glass, and of course the back panel where all this fun stuff is happening. So we fully built the PC, everything's put together, and we got to the...
So now it looks like the power supply has been fixed.
Yeah.
Post screen. So what's next? Well, you need a USB flash drive with your Windows installation media on it, and of course a license key. So I plugged that up.
Yeah, I mean, they don't need to cover that. I mean, there's plenty of videos online you can watch how to install an OS. That's fine, you know, but I personally, I'd have like maybe a little time lapse video, at least showing how it was done on this particular system.
Yeah.
And specifically drivers. They don't cover drivers. I don't think even maybe mentions the word drivers but once.
No. I recently installed Windows 11. It's been a long time since I installed Windows at home. At work, we have ISO images and everything is virtual servers these days, mostly. But what he just could show, go to Microsoft's website, go to download installation tool. They have a tool that helps you build the thumb drive. It will show that in 15 seconds.
Right.
Microsoft, their store has this.
Yeah.
You download that, it builds the thumb drive for you.
Exactly.
Plug that in. It will take 10 seconds to show.
And then also go to such and such website to find your drivers, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's actually important.
Yeah.
He does it, unless he covers that now. I don't know.
No, he doesn't. I mean, spend 15, 20 seconds on that instead of the thermal paste applicator.
Installed Windows in a couple of minutes, installed a bunch of drivers, and now we have a fully functioning gaming PC ready to run some games. Right now,
I saw Windows 11 that did install NVIDIA drivers, like proper NVIDIA drivers, when it did a default install.
Right.
But they weren't the latest. And if you're going to build a new PC, and this was Windows 10, I can't remember what Windows 10 did, but certainly if you're going to play games and you want to have everything working, you need to go to NVIDIA and get the driver and make sure you have the latest game-ready drivers. They have drivers oriented against optimization for games.
Specific for what purpose you're using your system for. Yeah, gaming or video editing or both. Yeah. So...
It's just,
and you know, to be honest, I think we should stop it there because he just goes over some games and you know, and he's playing League of Legends, which really isn't a really great GPU test, even by the standard back then.
So well, it's hard to get all the details in 11 minutes. Of how to build a PC. You certainly have to go over some detail, but he could have. I mean, I assume they have written a script or something like that. Or
it seemed like it. You know, I did like some other videos I watch. So So I did watch a couple other videos related to like Stefan's reaction after this was done. And the feeling I've gotten from Stefan is he's really blamed the Verge. It sounded like he really didn't get a whole lot of time to do this video. And he really wanted more time. Even after the video was produced, he went back to them. He was like, look, there's some mistakes I made. I'd like to reshoot some scenes if we could. But even still, there are some mistakes that were made that are not just time related.
There's a lot of weird information.
Yeah, and you know, I get the feeling that maybe he's built a few PCs, and you know, maybe the Verge just went saying, "Hey, anybody ever build a PC before?" I did. But yeah, there's a lot of mistakes in there. But you know, I don't mean to drag him through the mud. You know, I do recommend watching the Verge, fixing the Verge PC build by Linus Tech Tips. He had Stefan on. They talked about all the mistakes and went through it. So
yeah, we all make mistakes on YouTube. I mean.
Yeah,
that's one time or another we're going to do something stupid or something that isn't right. So I think the best thing you can do is correct it and say, right, this information I told you isn't right, or this isn't the best version of what we wanted to do. We need to redo this video. And so certainly doing it with Linus Tech Tips seems like a good idea.
They definitely knew they made some mistakes. I mean, the Verge, it might have been up for a couple months, but once they started seeing some heat, they took that video down. And you know, they were smart to do that. But honestly, if I were them, I would have made another video, made a better PC build video.
Could actually, perhaps they could have capitalized on it. Is that the right English word? They could have said that got so much heat, and I remember it being going the rounds everywhere. So they could actually say, "Oh yeah, we goofed or we did something," and they could have invited someone from another YouTube channel, a tech channel, to there perhaps, or they could have done it right and said, "Oh, we want to make." I mean, that would have got a ton of views because people wanted to see if they got something. So you know what I mean? Yeah,
the video that Linus Tech Tips basically did, I feel like the Verge should have done themselves.
Yeah.
But
they could have used all the if they've been quick about it, you know, they could say while it's still a thing.
Exactly. Yeah. They tried just quietly hiding it, but
deleting it.
Yeah, there was no way that was going to happen.
No.
All right. Well, that was the Verge PC build reaction video, and that's, like I said in the beginning of this, that's a video I've wanted to react to for many years, and I'm glad I got to with you, Martin.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, one positive thing about it, they did get a lot of comments and a lot of publicity.
Yeah.
So we had a famous Dane, can't remember who it if it was one or the other. He said bad publicity better than no publicity.
Yeah, that's exactly
was
right.
Was someone else?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, there's no such thing as bad news. Something like that.
So
you know,
it's probably something international, not the Danish kind. A lot of Danish people copy things people said otherwise, but he did some things that I won't get into here. But they said, at least people are paying attention to me. So anyway.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and end it here, and look forward to doing another reaction video with you soon, Martin.
Likewise.
Like, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff. Cheers. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.